Hi everyone, and welcome to the 11th day of Bookmas, and where I finally start talking about my favorite books of 2022. So these are ones I read in that year, but not necessarily ones that were published in 2022. And I ended up with 36 total 5-star reads, and I didn't want to talk about that many, so I am splitting this into 2 days, so today and tomorrow, and I'm splitting it by genre. So today will be all the kind of realistic genres, so the classics, the romances, and the nonfiction I read. And then tomorrow will be all kind of the speculative things, like the sci-fi, fantasy, horror, mythology type stuff will be tomorrow. So I figured that'd be a good way to split it up in case there's one genre that you want to hear more about. And my cat is here, so if you see a tail every once in a while, or if he shakes the camera, that's why. He's just hanging out here. All right, let's start off with the classics. I ended up reading 4 of Jane Austen's novels this year, and I had read a couple of Jane Austen's books before, but I think I was a lot younger and just wasn't really fully into reading classics that maybe were a little more slower moving, but I just found out I really appreciate them more now. And so I ended up having 2 Jane Austen novels on this top 10 list this year. So the first one is Pride and Prejudice, which I'm sure most everybody knows what Pride and Prejudice is about. It's like the original hate to love romance, but it's also a lot about class and family dynamics. And I just really loved watching this family, watching all of the Bennet sisters and their interactions with each other. You know, Mrs. Bennet and how she is just trying to make sure her daughters will have a sustainable life, by getting them married off. And then Mr. Bennet and his kind of way of arguing with his wife or whatever. And I just loved all the dynamics, but I also did just love the romance, the building romance between, Darcy and Elizabeth. So definitely one of my top books of this year, and we'll be reading Pride and Prejudice again, I am sure, at some point. And then the other one I really loved, which might be controversial when it comes to Jane Austen novels, but my other favorite was Northanger Abbey. And this one was just because I really loved the characters. This is her kind of gothic story that is kind of also poking fun of gothic stories of the time. And I just loved the humor in this, but I also just really enjoyed the characters. We're following a main character who's a little more innocent, and so she is drawn into some things or thinking some things about other people in the story that are a little out there because of her naivete, and then she's trusting some of the wrong people. But then I also just love seeing her build this friendship with this brother and sister. Obviously I love Henry Tilney as the love interest, but then also his sister and her relationship with our main character. I love seeing that too. So yeah, I just really enjoyed this one as well. So these are my top 2 of the Jane Austens I read this year. Like I said, I only read 4 of the novels this year, so hopefully we'll read the other 2 next year, and maybe they'll show up in my favorites again. And then the other classic that I'm putting on my favorites list is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. And this one was because it's not a perfect book for me. I didn't love the way this ended, but I think just feeling really immersed in the story, I felt it was really good storytelling. It's a huge book. I don't remember how many pages it is. It's getting close to 1,000 pages. It's one that's often abridged, but I feel it didn't go off on a lot of tangents. I feel it just had a lot of characters. It's an ultimate revenge story. We're following Edmund as everything kind of falls apart for him, and then him spending years and years planning this revenge on all the people that did him wrong, and seeing how all of the little threads come together. And I think it just even though it's really long, sometimes you'll be why are we going this direction? What is this all about? And then it comes back circle to the main people that he's going after. I just thought it was really cleverly written. It was a very immersive reading experience. It took me about 3 months to read this. And so yeah, it had to be on one of my favorites list, even though I didn't love the way it ended. I still am very glad that I read that book, and we'll probably return to it at some point. My cat is like really needy right now. And now moving on to my favorite romances that I read this year. I'd said yesterday in my least favorite that romance did not go so well for me, but I still had a couple. I had like 3 that turned into my favorites list, but it's either like I had ones that I really loved, ones I really didn't like. There wasn't a whole lot of in between. So the first one is Well Matched by Jen DeLuca. This is the 3rd in a companion series, and I really like Well Met is one of my favorite romances. I love that. Didn't like the 2nd book in the series, but then coming to this 3rd one, really ended up enjoying this one. This is an age gap romance, so our main character is, I think she's around 40. She has a daughter that is graduating from high school, so she's definitely at that point in her life. But then it's with a romance of a man who is, I think he's at least 10 years younger than her, doesn't have kids, always seemed to be kind of like someone who plays around and, you know, is kind of like a ladies' man and not necessarily somebody that settles down. But I just really ended up liking their friendship turning to romance. And this is also a fake dating because he needs somebody to come home with him to meet his family, because his family does this reunion every year. And they're always teasing him because he won't settle down and that he's not serious about life and all that. So he wants her to, you know, come with him as his girlfriend so that they kind of get off his back and all that. So I really loved that aspect of it, you know, fake dating. Great, the 1-bed trope and all that, when they're staying at the hotel for the family reunion. So there's a lot of tropes that are fun, and then I just really liked them together. And I didn't think I would, like, knowing these characters from the other books, I wasn't sure I was going to like them together, but she definitely sold me on it, and I really enjoyed their relationship. The next one is The Countess Conspiracy by Courtney Milan, and I just really like the way Courtney Milan writes her dialogue and her romances, the way the people have like witty banter with each other. This one also was like a friends turn lovers, which doesn't always work for me, but I mean, it just like had like, the angst was like the right kind of angst for me, where I was like, oh, I just really want you two to be happy and I want to see you together. This is one where the woman is a scientist, but this is historical romance, and so she can't really do the things that she wants to do as like a woman. So she has her best friend, who is a guy, basically present all of her scientific findings as his own, so that you know, she could still get her information out there and still get all her theories and all that, but she can't present it herself as a woman in this time period. And so there's this like, you know, they're keeping a secret from everyone. He's feeling a little like bogged down because he feels like he can't be himself because he's pretending to be her, you know, and even though he doesn't have any really like investment in science. And so there's that kind of like thing going on. And then, you know, he is just like so in love with her. She was married before, so he couldn't act on it, but then she is now a widow. But then it's like, is it too soon? All that. And I love the way that Courtney Milan puts consent in her books, and also healing from past wounds. You know, the woman, she's healing a lot from the way her husband treated her and the things that were happening in her marriage. And like, she doesn't think she'll ever get married again based on her experience in marriage. So yeah, just like the healing process and then their friendship and everything was just beautiful about this one. And it's one of my favorite of her. It's my favorite of her full-length novels that I have read. I've had some novellas I liked better, but really enjoyed this one. Then my last romance that's on this list is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I just really enjoy Emily Henry's adult romances. All of the ones I've read. This is one of my favorite, I think. I don't know. I need to reread it because I've reread Beach Read. And so like part of me thinks that Beach Read is still my favorite. But I think if I reread this one, it could be my favorite. I just really liked the way she took some kind of tropes of like the small town romance and turned it on its head. So this is about a woman from the big city and her sister really wants to go on this vacation to a small town, and her sister wants them to experience kind of the things you would experience in a Hallmark romance, you know, dating the local guy and going on hikes and, you know, doing all the stuff you do that they do in those movies. And then, you know, in the movie they always end up like moving to the small town and realizing that the small town life is better. And this is kind of turning it on their head, that this big city woman is like, I have no interest in moving to this small town. You know, I love my life in New York City, and, you know, I can enjoy this vacation, but I'm not gonna like fall in love with a small town guy. And then our main male character is also from the city, and they have previously known each other from work and didn't get along. And so it's, you know, hate to love. And I just really enjoy the way she does dialogue. I liked the tropes in this one and just really enjoyed it. So I'll have to see if this ends up beating out Beach Read. At this point, it's probably my second favorite Emily Henry, but really enjoyed this one. And then we'll end this off with my top 4 nonfiction for the year. I have All 13, The Incredible Cave Rescue of the Thai Boys Soccer Team by Christina Soontornvat. And this is about the rescue of the soccer team in Thailand. I went into this not really knowing what to expect, because, you know, it's like children's nonfiction. Like, this is written for probably like a middle school audience to learn about this, and it's got lots of pictures and interviews and everything. And I was just riveted the entire time by the writing, about the situation, about everything that was happening through this rescue. I loved like the inclusion of all of the photographs and the interviews, and like hearing from all the different people about this rescue, because you're not just hearing from the rescuers, you're hearing from the townspeople, you know, the family members, everything about like everybody's trying to work together to rescue these boys. And yeah, I was just like on the edge of my seat with this nonfiction book, and especially it being written for a child audience as well. I don't think you should view that as something to deter you as an adult from reading it, because I just think it's really well written and just completely compelling the entire time. And so this is probably my favorite of all the nonfictions. This is probably like my top nonfiction of the year. And then my next nonfiction is Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. And this is her memoir, which is written in verse. And so this is about her as a child. So kind of how her childhood experience influenced her to become an author, and how books touched her life as a child, and the way her, like, you know, verse writing in this, like the poetry type writing, was so beautiful. I really loved all of her experiences as a child connecting to books, and then also just learning about her growing up and how that, you know, builds a person, you know, like all of your experiences come together to, you know, make who you are as an adult. And so I really appreciated this memoir. Next, I have I Am Malala, How One Girl Stood Up for Education and Changed the World by Malala Yousafzai. And this is, I actually ended up reading the Young Readers Edition. I do own her like adult version, but it just happened to be for middle grade March. I picked up the Young Readers Edition, and so I don't know how much different they are, but I really enjoyed, I mean, I guess it's hard to say enjoy because she went through a lot of things, but I really appreciated hearing her story. And also, like, her father just had my heart, like how much he just like supported her and really was like, you can do whatever you want to do, as you know, because people kept telling her she couldn't do things as a girl, that she didn't need all this education, that why does she need it, you know, and everything. And her dad's just like, if you want to learn, you learn. And yeah, just, and then everything she went through and her strength. And I just really appreciated reading her story, and I will eventually read the adult version as well. And the last one on this list is Why You Should Read Children's Books Even Though You Were So Old and Wise by Catherine Rundell, which actually is sitting right here. I didn't want to pull all of my books off the shelf for this, but it is sitting right here, so you can see it there. And this one is very short. It's just a essay she wrote, basically why she thinks that everybody, no matter your age, should read children's books. And as you can tell from this list, and tomorrow you'll see it as well, a lot of my favorites are written, like targeted for a younger audience. And that's because I think that it doesn't matter what age group a story is targeted. If it's a really good story, it can be read at all ages. There are, of course, books that like might not really impact an adult audience as much, but then there are ones that can be appreciated just as much by someone my age as by my like 7-year-old daughter. And this one is talking through all those, why some of these stories are so universal about the human condition, and why like children's books are full of hope even if they have really hard issues. And a lot of them do have hard issues because kids, you know, need to see that, and then the world that there are really tough situations that we go through as humans, but that hope is what brings us through those situations. And so I just really appreciated everything about this essay. And that's all for this video today. Come back tomorrow if you want to see the top 10 books I read in the sci-fi fantasy genres. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.